Hi, friends. I'm Meg of megburtontudman.com, and you are in the right place if you are looking for comfort in your own skin. I am so excited to kick off this series of interviews with my dear friend, Erin Whiting. I'm going to let her tell you her story because she tells it best. I'll just add in real quick, though, that she is truly one of my favorite people in the world and has been so helpful on my own journey to healing. So with that, Erin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Erin Whiting. Thanks, Meg. I'm so excited for having me on your YouTube channel, and especially about this topic. Such a great topic. So I'm Erin Whiting, and I own a company called Soleil Wellness. It's in Rochester, New York. And for about the past 8 years, I've really focused on helping people understand what's happening in their energy field through the tools of Reiki, meditation, yoga, and it just keeps evolving from there. So I was really brought to Reiki because back in 2008, I was suffering from postpartum depression. And I did the standard thing. I went to my doctor and to find out what I could do about this. I didn't even really realize that's what it was.
Right.
But, they gave me a prescription for Zoloft, and that worked.
Yay, it worked.
And that's, I think, what the standard thing is when you go to the doctors. But at some point, it stopped working. And that's when I started reaching for, how do people manage stress? And I don't even think I really realized that stress was what I was experiencing at that time.
Yeah.
So I started doing things like yoga and acupuncture, things like that. I didn't really know what I was looking for, but when I stumbled upon Reiki, it was like the dark clouds moved away for me. And I just quickly began to understand who I really am, how sensitive I am to energy and the energy of other people. And so I dove into that, and I never thought I would have created a business that was all about that. But sure enough, if you just keep following those breadcrumbs, that's where it led me.
Right.
So that's what we're doing today.
It's so wonderful. And it's a magical place, Soleil Wellness. I feel like as soon as you walk in, the energy changes and you can just feel that sense of calm, like already a weight has been lifted off of you.
Yeah, you know what? A lot of people say that. And I think to myself, when I built this barn on my property, with my family here and everything. And, this business, as we were saying, is really me. It's my vibe, right? And it's also the collective vibe of everybody that comes here to let go of things.
Yes.
But the world is so crazy. I wanted to create a space where people could break away from their norm and just really feel safe to get connected to who are they really.
Right.
That was cool. That's the vibe you feel when you walk in.
It's perfect. And that's such a perfect segue too. So when you think about, letting go and being comfortable in your own skin and being able to be yourself, what do you think the role of Reiki is in all of that?
Well, for me, it feels like, we're in a world that really wants to put a label on you. It wants to say, you're a woman, you're a mom, you're a worker at Xerox or whatever the world has a million labels. And if you don't have a definition for yourself, the world starts to panic and everyone needs to have a label. And for me, I've really just gotten comfortable with this is who I am today. And I don't know what that means, who I will be tomorrow. So for example, I recently, probably for the past 6 months, I've kind of veered away from eating animal products. And so everybody around me is like, well, you're vegan. I'm like, can you stop telling? I don't know. Maybe I'm going to go back to it tomorrow. But taking the pressure off of you and off of myself to have that identity built around now you're vegan. Well, what if you change your mind?
Right.
So that makes me feel so much getting comfortable in that, just flowing without any real definition, which is, I think, maybe a little tricky, but
yeah,
that's what makes me feel comfortable.
Right. It's interesting. I feel like there's an element of distinct freedom from being able to say, I'm not going to adhere to a specific label. And then at the same time, there's an element of like, well, how do I ground myself? I feel kind of adrift if I don't have that label. What do you think?
Yeah, so that is probably the thing that we work on the most here at the barn, right?
Yeah.
So, there's that phrase of, hopefully I can say it right. I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, where most people identify so much with that human aspect.
Right.
And so to kind of take a step back and start looking at your life like, okay, I'm an eternal being. And that might be a little heavy for your audience, but I'm an eternal being, like an infinite being with infinite potential. And I'm having this one little experience as Erin Whiting, right? And right now, Erin Whiting's not eating meat products, you know what I mean? But just to pull back and look at life from your spiritual perspective versus your little tiny human perspective.
Right.
And really, not denying, like some of those human conflicts and challenges that we face.
Right.
But instead of just getting in it, so like it's kind of like that whole idea of being in the forest, and then kind of pulling back and seeing, that it is even a forest, like you just trees, but this is one little forest. So kind of understanding that you can ground yourself in that identity of being a spiritual being versus all of the human things you're doing.
Right. It makes perfect sense. And I think, the authenticity piece, that's where it shines. Like when you're able to let go of the label and say, I may be, a mom, I may work at Xerox, I may be a woman, but I'm so much more than that. That one piece or those three pieces of me don't define who I am. There's more to me than that. And I think a lot of times, and this definitely happened for me for a long time, you get stuck in those roles and then you're not authentic anymore because nothing else can come in.
That is so totally exactly it, because we get so attached to I'm vegan or I'm this and I'm that. And then when our spirit says, okay, time to be done with that experience, because from that spiritual perspective, everything has a beginning and everything has an end. So how can you move through the experience of motherhood without being attached to even all the ideas that you think a mother should be, right? So, really, like when you're so identified with that human aspect, it's so hard to move on and find the joy because you've built your whole identity just around that. So, it's tricky, but it's good.
It's tricky.
It's not I always say like, hey, like I could help you become like the best, most amazing healer in this world, but eventually that's going to fall because you're going to move through something and you're going to want to keep moving through it. And if you're holding on to that one idea of who you are, you're going to hit a hard spot at some point. So
how do you think you can prep yourself for that? Like, how can you still have the experience and be in the moment wholeheartedly and then still recognize when it's time to move on and kind of be ready for that?
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
Want to be ready. So I always think like everything is very impermanent. And that is so uncomfortable for our human mind. That's so uncomfortable. And we spend a lot of our life, like a real lot of our life, trying to make things permanent. It's like we want to, okay, I got this whole business established. I just want to sit back and coast, right? Like I've achieved it. I finished it. I completed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I've realized, and this has gotten easier as we go, but
Yeah.
As soon as you're completing something, the next thing is emerging within you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just being like learning some tools to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And if you're like, it's so different for everybody because like for me, I'm not a coaster. Like I just keep moving through, like I'm moving now to the next thing and the next thing. And
Mm-hmm.
even my business has evolved tremendously over 8 years.
Yeah.
But some people, they get a little more coast than I do. So just understand who you are and understand that it is going to change, but learning that helps you learn to appreciate it in the moment, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
And half of the fun comes for me from the new, like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do next? Like, that was great. What are we going to do next?
Right.
What's coming next? Right.
And that's totally mindset. I mean, you could go into that same situation with, oh, what are we going to do next? I'm so jazzed about this. Or you could go into it like, oh my God, like, what's next? This is so awful. It's going to be something new. I have no idea what's happening.
Why are you making
yeah.
Right.
Why are you making me do this?
And it's so true that, you know, it sounds so cliche, but the only thing you really can be sure about ever and prepared for ever is that it's going to change.
Right.
So getting yourself into a state where you're appreciating that flow versus resisting it.
Right. Right. I think the resistance is big. What are some of your favorite tools or strategies or techniques for two things? And I feel like there might be some overlap here. So to deal with the resistance and also to be or to get closer to being comfortable while you're uncomfortable.
Okay. So when I first learned Reiki, it was so just eye-opening for me. I'm just much more of a person who's comfortable in that like spiritual, like there's more than just our physical reality, right?
Yeah.
And that's very comfortable for me to, but also can be a place that I escape to. Okay. And so when you're dealing with changes that are coming, and they are coming, sometimes like the spiritual energy people can tend to want to escape a little bit and deny that there's changing happening and deny that they're even afraid, right? So understanding and learning how to really face my fear and help me like walk hand in hand with it, knowing like, yes, I'm afraid, but I know that I'm okay, right? And there's really two things that I do for that work really well for me. I had to learn to breathe. Like I had to learn to breathe. And it's seems so obvious, but it's the only way to override your fight and flight. Yep. I think that's the only way. That's the only way that I have found.
Yep.
To really learn to breathe. And that's your surrender piece, because you can't control stuff. You can't make it all happen. You have to just breathe. The second thing that I do is in understanding that as a human being, you are afraid. Like it's part of your built-in mechanism. So instead of trying to like deny that you're afraid or kind of push those fears aside, you know, that voice inside of your head that's like, I'm never enough, it's never enough, they're never enough, all of that whole voice is coming from fear, right? And so you got to create the United Nations, right? Like you got to create, like,
I love that.
Come together, everyone, and like let's have a team meeting, because if you exclude fear from your, from your team meeting, fear is going to create a serious problem for you in your life. Okay.
Right.
So you include her in and you just look at your fears and you say, what are you afraid of? What are you really afraid of? And I journal it all out, and it ends up like when I look at it, I'm like, it makes absolutely no sense half the time, the things you're afraid of. Like, unless you're being, this is my favorite thing to say, unless you're being chased by something like a bear, you have nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah.
And that's gained from understanding our spiritual journey here on earth and you find that safety within that. So understanding that we have a lot of perceived fears, you can't ignore them, but you do not have to be ruled by them.
Yeah, I love that. I love the kind of the teasing it out piece. I look at it almost like a little kid would ask why. So you start with kind of like what you think you're afraid of, because it's rarely that. And then you keep asking, well, why? And you get deeper. And to your point, you often can get to that level where it's like, well, that's not like, either it's not a big deal, or if it is a big deal, well, there's a totally different way I could handle that, and it's not what I was doing before. And maybe it's as simple as, taking some deep breaths. I'm still amazed at the power of that.
People used to tell me, we just have to breathe. I'm like, screw you. I am falling apart. Breathe. Have you met my children? I can't. Breathing is not going to do me any good. And I've gone so full circle on that where I'm like, oh, dang, that was it. But
they were right.
All the steps that have led me to my breath, were all meant to be. So
yeah. Do you see fear as the biggest struggle for the clients who come to see you? Or is there something else that they...
You know what? I think, even to like bring it back to your topic, I think fear is the biggest struggle for everyone.
Yeah.
And when you think about the world at large, there's a lot of programming in our world to try to make you feel like who you are is not okay.
Right.
And then you have a fear that you carry that you're not okay. And whether it's your safety or I'm not okay, I have to be something different to be loved. I have to be something that this world is creating the image for me to be.
Right.
It's all fear, right? So a lot of people think like the opposite of love is hate, but I think it's fear.
Yeah, I would agree.
Right? So, and then when you really learn to identify fear and know that there's another option to like love yourself and love others, that really starts to change everything, I think.
Yeah.
I think it is
to lead from a place of love.
I think it is the problem. And I think what I see for my clients and the people that come to the barn is that they're not even fully aware of, they're not even fully able to tap into how afraid they have been. And so a lot of times it is a process of slowing down tremendously and acknowledging those wounds inside of you. And I think part of the reason, and this is ultimately, this as a healer, that you can learn all these tricks and techniques and whatever, but ultimately, if as a healer you're facing your fears, then the people that come see you can face theirs, right? That's the space that you are now holding for everyone, right? As you move, every time you move through something, you create this little energy of, it's okay. You can move past this now.
Right.
They get off on a tangent. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. It's so good. I'm wondering, so for the people watching who are not healers, they're not in that space, maybe yet, or maybe never will be, what can they do on their own to keep moving forward? So we have the breath work, which for sure is a game changer. If for those of you watching, if you're not doing that yet, tap into your breath, because that's so powerful. And then there's the, kind of the tuning in to the fear and acknowledging what's happening. Why am I feeling this way? And working to tease that out and really understand what's at the root. What else can they do as they work through whatever happens to be their human experience at that particular moment?
Yeah. That's a great question. I'd actually start by saying that even if you don't think you're a healer, you are. You are, I think a lot of us spend time projecting, or not projecting, but really focused on how can I fix other people, or how can I help other people, or how can I change this person outside of me to make it more comfortable for me, maybe even. But in changing who you are, you have an immense capacity on the world around you. And I think I'm going to start by saying that's the one thing that this world truly needs, is that for everyone to identify within themselves their healer capabilities, right? And heal themselves, because it just changes everything around you. But let's see, if I had one suggestion other than that, I think that one of my favorite lines, and you could pretty much, I hashtag this one a lot, is become a student of life. Okay. So just shifting yourself from thinking that you have to have everything figured out to more like, okay, your life is a learning for you, right? And there's no deadline on the test, you know what I mean? And there really is no test. So relax into that. It's like this world is so not relaxed.
Right.
And they don't even realize how unrelaxed they are. So relax into life and become the student.
Yeah. Oh, I love
not that. a hardcore tool, but that's a concept that, like, if you switch to, instead of being angry with yourself or frustrated, like,
right,
just take a deep breath and be like, what am I going to learn from this experience?
Right. That it's not forever, that there's something to learn.
Right.
And, the opportunity, like you said before, with love versus fear. Well, if I treat myself that way, how does that impact the people around me? When you look at, we each have the ability to heal ourselves to a large extent, maybe not completely in every case, but we certainly have a lot more power within us than I think a lot of us claim. And recognizing that, yeah.
Oh man, we're handing our power out to the doctors, to the teachers, to the parents, to the husbands, to the children even. And we have to reclaim our power in a big way right now. And I see it happening. It's really a beautiful thing to see happening out there. But
yeah,
it's great. Yeah.
It's exciting. There's good things coming, right?
I hope so. I think so. I know that a lot of people would look out and see things not going well, but I look out, okay, good. Sometimes you got to have a breakdown to have that breakthrough sometimes. So
Right.
Our world is having a little breakdown right now.
A little bit. In some cases, a lot bit.
It's a detox.
Yeah.
Detox in this world. So
Right. To then rebuild.
Exactly.
Like
coming through.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much. What is happening next at the barn for you?
That's interesting. You should ask. I just created a bunch of new things. So
great.
In that whole idea that we're kind of ever changing and evolving, for me, things have changed significantly for me over the last year. I've kind of tapped more into my creative side of how do I want to teach other people how to go through this process. And I think there's a lot of people that have started, doing yoga or hearing about meditation, and that's been great. But then there's like this whole other segment of people who've kind of been at it for a while, and I feel that I'm like more zoning in on those people.
Yeah.
And how can you move to the next level? So I created that course called A Course in Light Mastery.
Yes.
And I just completed my first round of it, and it was really amazing and fun for me.
Good.
So I'm going to be doing that again over the summer. But I've also created a few new courses. One about creating boundaries, which I think is very difficult for many of us, especially like the empathic people who want to like please everyone, the people pleasers.
Yep.
And I also created one about creating, and created like, how can you become more of creating what's in your passion versus creating from fear. I think we make so many decisions based on, I'm afraid, I got to get that job, I got to pay my bills, got to do the mortgage. And so you kind of feel stuck in this cycle. And so how do you kind of break out and tap more into your creativity? So, and look at the barn as evolving more into like the people who really want to get the change going in their life and really want to surrender.
Yeah.
You know, not just the people who are like, you know, and it's the people who are willing to change. And that's been my biggest learning, is that so many people aren't really willing to change.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
But there's nothing that any healer or teacher or anything is going to do for you unless you are willing to really make some of the harder decisions. And I know we've talked about that before, of like, sometimes you got to leave your job or,
Right.
you know, downsize something in order to make real changes start to happen in your world.
Right. So. It's amazing. I think sometimes, and I've done this in my own life, the changes have to be like a huge overhaul, like major life changes. And then sometimes they can be seemingly really small. And when you kind of pile all of those together, they all make a big impact. So even the, you know, oh, I'm going to have, you know, a daily meditation practice. Well, in the big scheme of things, taking, you know, a few minutes every morning isn't a huge investment, but the payback is enormous. So it's, you know, little things and big things together that can really be a catalyst for change once, to your point, you're ready.
Exactly. And I think ultimately, when you are ready, there's nothing that will stop you.
No.
So when you're ready, you do it. And there doesn't, if, you know, like for me, when I started coming to this Reiki thing, there was just like nothing that was going to stop me. I cleared things away of my life so easily, because once you really know this is what I want, and this, I'm going to go after it, it just becomes so easy. And, you know, there's that little voice inside of your head that says, there's more, keep going. And you just got to like listen to that. And ultimately, I think, and I'm sure you've had this experience, is that when you decide you're ready to change, everything starts coming at you to support you that you need. So,
yep. Things start to fall in place that you never even maybe paid attention to before, that maybe were there for a while and you just weren't ready to acknowledge them or to pay them any mind. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, that.
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah. And I don't know if that's something, I don't know. I really think about this a lot. Is that something that is, it's just, you know, can you control that about yourself? Like, I don't know. Like, I like to go after life, you know, I like to do it. I like to move and change. It's easier for me than I think maybe some people, but I don't know.
Yeah. Part of that, though, I think a big part, I mean, certainly the tools that you've mentioned throughout our conversation today, but also just the fact that you've decided that that's your story around change, that I am embracing it. It's exciting. It's empowering. There's something really great on the horizon, and I'm going after it. Even though things might be really great right now, I'm going to enjoy it, and then I'm going to keep moving forward.
Right. And just knowing, you know, enjoy that present moment, and just know that, you know, because I tend to get like, oh, like I can see out like where the changes are coming. And then I tend to start stressing because I know that it's going to change. Right. So I pull myself back. When you really trust, like for me, it's my intuition, that internal GPS system that pings me when it's time to turn right, you know, and turn left, you know, and so learning to just rely on that, holy smokes, has been a life-changing thing, because I don't have to worry about the future, because my GPS will tell me when it's time. you know, and then I'll know what to turn. When you're following your spiritual path, there is no 10-year plan. There's like, here's what you do next. And now you do this next, and now next, you know, and so you can really settle and be a little more relaxed if you trust that.
Right. There is an element of coast a little bit.
Yeah, but sometimes you get to coast,
yeah.
You know, but then it's time, you know, if your GPS starts pinging you and you don't listen, that's that like resistance piece comes in, because you're like, oh, it's pinging me. I don't want to let this go. I don't want to move beyond this.
Right.
So that's where that fear. So you got to kind of be tuned in.
Yeah.
Know, pretty well. Otherwise,
I love that.
You know, having the stress.
Right. Right. Right.
When your GPS says turn, it's only a matter of time before you will have to turn. You can resist it all you want, but knowing that you're going to turn at some point.
Right. So it's either on your terms when your GPS gives you that gentle ping or that nudge, or it's maybe not on your own terms and it's still going to happen anyway.
Yeah. Dun, dun.
In a good way, though. It's
ultimately, it's great. It's what you want. That's the
Mm-hmm.
thing, is like when you're following your GPS, it's what you really want. Your mind's got all these ideas. It goes back to that identity thing about you gotta be this, you gotta be that. But man, if you get comfortable in that flow and you get out of those definitions, the GPS takes you to really good places.
I love
that. Never imagined.
Yes. Yeah, seriously, way better than you could have imagined.
Way better. Oh my gosh, you're the perfect example of that.
Yeah, never in a million years would I have thought that this would be where I am, and it's so much better. So much better.
It's so freeing.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that element of freedom, that element of, I mean, I talk about empowerment and authenticity a lot, but you need that to thrive. I mean, we need that positive energy that I think all three of those components embody.
Totally. And I would almost be willing to say that the reason that we have, you know, perhaps some of the addictions of like the overeating and the maybe over exercising or, you know, whatever, being on Facebook too much, or I don't know what, it was such an addictive thing, is that because we don't have that connection to that creative side of us. So, you know, when I think about like weight loss or anything in my life, I just know that the happier I am in that flow, the less I pull out my Doritos and sit on the couch and like look at the TV, you know?
Right.
So, I like to stay in that flow.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much. Erin, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and your work. Where can our friends find you if they want to learn more?
You can check out our website, which is Soleil, SOLEIL-wellness.com.
Okay, I'll put it in the comments too. Yeah.
Perfect.
Great. Thank you so much, my friend.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, sounds good. Bye.
Bye.